Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to begin our survivor panel in about 2 minutes. Thanks so much for anybody who just joined. We will be Thank you for anybody who just joined. We will be starting our survivor panel in about a minute. All right, so thank you everyone for attending today's survival panel. This is part of our Acute Leukemia conference that's taking place all today. So I really wanted to welcome everyone. My name is Charlotte Hall-Coates and I'm the Community Services Manager for the Atlantic region, and I'm really excited to be introducing today's event as well as moderating. So before we get going, I just have a few housekeeping notes. This event will be approximately 60 minutes. Since there are quite a few attendees, we invite you to ask questions via the Q&A box, which is located at the bottom of your screen. There is also a chat box, but we encourage you to use the Q&A to submit any questions or comments, just because it's a little bit easier for us to manage. And the panelists will have an opportunity to answer any questions submitted at the end of the presentation. So before we get going, I just wanted to highlight a few of our LLSC programs, as well as go over the mission of our organization. So at the LLSC, our mission is to cure blood cancers and improve the quality of life of those touched by a blood cancer, as well as their families. We offer guidance and support every step of the way. We know that the current situation presents many challenges to those affected by blood cancer and their families. We have community services manager in all regions who can help. Please do not hesitate to contact the LLSC if you need more information or support. You can reach us at email, which is info@bloodcancers.ca, or give us a call toll free at 1-833-222-4884. We also offer a variety of educational resources and materials to help those affected by a blood cancer. Those include fact sheets and educational videos as shown on screen. We also offer webcasts and podcasts which touch upon different subjects and topics. So if you visit bloodcancers.ca/webcasts, you'll be able to find all archived recordings of previous webcasts that we've hosted, as well as get notified of any upcoming webcasts. You can also subscribe to our podcast, The Blood Cancer Experience, to learn more about new research, hear patient stories, and learn about different treatments. Our podcast is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as in the other platforms that you enjoy listening to your podcast. We also have our peer support program, which is an opportunity for people touched by blood cancer, as well as their family members and caregivers, to connect with one of our peer volunteers. This program is really designed to alleviate some of the isolation that comes with being diagnosed with a blood cancer, and being able to connect with someone who has that shared experience. So I also encourage anybody who's interested in connecting to one of our volunteers to reach out to us. So before we get going, I really want to make sure I had the opportunity to thank Stellas, who is generously supported this event. So thank you to them, and then thank you to all our panelists who joined us. So I'm gonna hide my screen. Perfect. So I'm so excited to be joined by 5 acute leukemia survivors. So to start off with, we have Sarah and Dylan, who both live in Nova Scotia. They are also both ALL survivors. We then have Jerry and Jason, who are AML survivors, who are both from Prince Edward Island. And then lastly, we have Daryl from Newfoundland and Labrador, and Daryl is also an AML survivor. So to get us going, I have some questions that are both geared towards the group, or I have individual questions, so we'll kind of mix it up. Again, if anybody tuning in has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A box on your screen below. So to get us going, I'm hoping that each of you can take 1 or 2 minutes to maybe introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about your diagnosis and what your treatment was like. So just looking at my screen, Daryl, did you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, again, like you said, my name is Daryl Hines from St. John's, Newfoundland. I was diagnosed back in 2016. I was the top of my game, training for the Tele 10, which is a huge marathon here, bodybuilding, and quit smoking. And then all of a sudden I had a little sore in my mouth that wouldn't go away. And next thing you know, I had a doctor looking at me saying, "Congratulations, you have leukemia." And then it just was a whirlwind from there. I would say that was in April of 2016. 2017 in September, I had a stem cell transplant with an unknown donor. And of course, I don't need to go into all of the ups and downs of that whole journey, but I'm here on the happy end of it now. And that's pretty much it for me.
Great, thanks so much for sharing, Daryl. We're gonna move it on to Dylan. Do you wanna go next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Dylan. I was diagnosed in 2015 with ALL. I finished my treatment in February 2017. So I'm almost at my 5-year mark, so that's a great one. I can't wait to hit that one. I'm from Cape Breton Island, and I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to chat.
Great, thanks so much, Dylan. Jerry, did you want to introduce yourself next?
Hi, I'm Jerry from Prince Edward Island. I got diagnosed June 30th, first treatment July 1st, 2018. Anyway, went through the treatment, went into remission in October, went out to see a granddaughter being born, and back in April, back in Halifax. So stem cell transplant, October 2019. I know my donor, young fella from Colin McPhee from Nepean, Ontario, and we're all good.
Oh, so, thank you so much, Jerry. Really, really appreciate hearing from you today. Next, we have Jason.
Yes, I'm Jason. I was diagnosed August 25th, 2019. It came as a surprise to myself anyway. I had been suffering from chronic fatigue and a few other symptoms, and really was expecting a diabetes diagnosis, and I was told I had leukemia. From there, long bumpy road to transplant in June 26th of last year.
Great, thanks so much for sharing, Jason. And then Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I was diagnosed with ALL in July of 2018. And that treatment plan that was the Dana-Farber protocol, which is a little over 2 years. So it's kind of an intensive phase, and then 8 rounds of brain radiation, and then chemo, like weekly chemo for 2 years, about that. I finished treatment last August, and I'm feeling pretty good. I did have to get 2 full hip replacements last year because of the side effects of the steroids, which are part of treatment. And a little bit about myself. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I live a little just outside of Halifax in Fall River.
Great, thanks so much for sharing, Sarah. So you actually mentioned your chemotherapy regimen and with the Dana-Farber regimen. So I know both you and Dylan had pretty lengthy treatments and maintenance. Can you both chat a little bit about what that experience was like going through such a long chemo duration, especially when you're, starting your career or we're still in school? So I'll open it to either you or Dylan, if whoever wants to go first.
You want to go first, Sarah? You can go ahead. Fuck me. I don't want to cut anybody off. So.
Well, I'll just
We'll talk about your hip replacements. That's I never had that type of anything from the steroids like that, but I had my fair share of the low percentile of things. They'll tell you, oh, that might never happen, but I seem to get all those things. But I found one drug specifically was asparaginase that really messed with me. Gave me a lot of blood clots. And I think over time, it wasn't so much the one dose of asparaginase, it was like the longevity of it. So being in the maintenance phase, I think it's like the long period of getting a certain drug and everyone reacts different every drug. So like, I was kind of interested to hear you had a hip replacement where I had blood clot in my brain. So technically I had a stroke. They had to fight that for a while. They weren't sure what it was. So that was pretty scary for a while, but that was probably the worst thing that happened to me was the seizures and the blood clot from the maintenance.
Wow, that sounds like a lot to deal with.
Well, it was, of course, yeah. But and like I said, everyone has something different. I never heard anyone getting a hip replacement before, so I'm curious to hear about that.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I found when you get diagnosed, I mean, obviously it's very shocking, and then they present you with this kind of 2-year treatment plan, which seems so daunting at the beginning. They're like, well, here's what's going to be happening to you for the next 2 years. You're not really going to be doing anything. You're going to be doing this. So that's kind of, I got diagnosed when I was 27. So kind of interrupts things a little bit, but basically the steroids, which are part of your kind of 2-year treatment, that was really actually the toughest part for me were the steroids, I found, because you take them for a few weeks and then you have to stop abruptly for a week, and then you take them for another little bit and you keep having to come off them. And so you have to go into withdrawal every month basically from these intense steroids. And that I got a lot of joint pain from that and back pain. That was I would say probably the worst part for me. And then it can happen to, like you said, Dylan, a low percentage of people can get what they call AVN, which is avascular necrosis, which is basically bone death, I guess. So in my hips and shoulders, I had all this bone degradation, and I had to last year because it just got too painful that I got both hips replaced. But now they feel awesome and great. Now that I'm on the other side of it, it's great. But it was challenging at the time for sure.
Oh wow, I bet. Glad to hear that you're both doing well though right now. That's awesome. So the next question is for Jason, Jerry, and Daryl. So you all were treated for AML, which included a stem cell transplant. And I believe you were all treated in Halifax. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like, having to, go to a different province to receive your treatment, and what being, away from your home province, your home city, and your family was like? So I don't know who wants to. Maybe Daryl. Maybe you can start us off.
I'll chime in first. Well, my wife and I went to Halifax, and of course, then my daughter was 16. My son was 19 or 18, I think. Yeah, no, we'll say 19. And it was difficult to leave them especially being at the age they were. They were not quite old enough to be by themselves, but too old to have someone like a nanny or a poppy stay with them. You wanted to give them their independence, and but having to leave home, we were gone for 8 weeks. You know, being isolated, not having, well, I had with the company I worked for at the time had an office there in Halifax. So I had a few co-workers come in from time to time, but, you know, no real family support other than my wife, God love her. It was tough. I didn't have a real good experience with the hostels after my transplant and staying where we had to stay. But the treatment itself, the staff, it was just amazing with the treatment. That what made it, you know, that much better. The one thing I would absolutely recommend to anybody who's ever going to go through any of this, when you go through the radiation and they make this mask for you to wear to protect all your vital organs, they say to use medication. Absolutely, because I didn't. And it took me a long time to get over that stuff, right? Sorry. And obviously you never do. But if someone is going through this again, no matter how tough you are, use the medication for that mask. But
all right.
You know,
so if they offer it, you should take them up on it.
Is it okay if I add in there, Daryl? I kind of had a similar experience, and I'm sure Sarah knows too, is any lumbar punctures or anything in our spine. You get a lot of those done when you go through a lot of leukemia. That was something that I always hated too, and I took Ativan for that. It was more of like the buildup. You know, it's something that you kind of, you know, you're going to do, so you think about it and you work it up in your head. So I know what Daryl's talking about when he says there. So I know exactly what you're going through, man. It sucks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing, Daryl. Jerry, did you want to talk a little bit about your experience, you know, being so far away from home, receiving your treatment?
Well, I wasn't quite as far as Daryl, thank heavens. I just had a bridge to go across. Well, we basically spent 2 years in Halifax. We, the first year we were there from July till the end of October. So we were very fortunate, I'm retired, so we rented a condo in a building where we had 2 best friends, which was great for Joe, you know, because I spent most of my time in the hospital. And as Daryl said, the staff at the hospital, amazing. They become your family. And so when I didn't have radiation, I just had all chemo. But I know what you're talking about in the mask, Daryl, because our daughter had tumors and she had to have radiation and they were on her carotid artery. And she had to have a mask, but she had to have a Montreal Canadiens emblem on that mask. Anyway, so I was very fortunate. I would, the big thing we would look for is heading back to the bridge. So Halifax with her family for 2 years.
Wow.
And people were able to come. Well, I was a lot more fortunate than Daryl because we had a lot of family and friends that were able to make that trip. So
definitely, thanks for sharing, Jerry. I'm sure that made a big difference having, you know, a support network here as well.
Huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jason, did you want to talk a little bit about your experience? You're sort of the most recent one to have had to make, you know, the trips back and forth.
Yes, and it was very much complicated by COVID last portion. I basically ended up going through stem cell transplants pretty much by myself. My only contact really was virtually. Though I was a little bit lucky, it is technically my home province. I'm originally from Nova Scotia, grew up pretty much in the Halifax area. So I knew the city. I have friends there. My parents still live in Nova Scotia. But yeah, COVID complicated things. I got held back once due to an infection in my lungs. And then I got held back again because my original donor, we got sick, I'm assuming with COVID, and they found a second donor for me. And yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge, I've got 3 young kids, all under the age of 10. And yeah, trying to balance going to Halifax for treatment while still having time, being able to spend time with my kids.
Wow.
Balancing act.
Wow, it's really tough. And you mentioned, such an important part was the added COVID stress and not having, maybe the same experience as others where you could have family members come. So that actually ties in nicely to the next question I want to ask. And that's how, COVID has impacted, I guess, for a lot of you, no longer your treatment, but kind of that recovery phase of your cancer experience and sort of what the impacts that it has had on your sort of road to recovery. So I don't know who wants to jump in, if anybody wants to answer this one first.
Well, I can answer for me.
Yeah.
Actually, I used to have to, of course, head to Halifax when I had to have my appointments. Since COVID, I have them virtually. So I just have them in the house by a phone call, and it's awesome. Don't have to make that trip back to Halifax.
So that's something you're probably hoping continues post-COVID then.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Definitely.
I'm very fortunate.
I don't know if anyone else can contest to this, but I like how you can call and make an appointment for blood work now.
So you also had some good changes then, Dylan.
Yeah,
some improvements.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough now to be in the phase now where I only get blood work every 6 months. So it's not a big deal to go get blood work. It's not every week like it used to be or anything like that. But I hope they keep that change. It's a little glimmer of hope and everything here. And everyone's washing their hands again. It's something I really think COVID changed. Did everybody really wash their hands before COVID? I don't think so.
Improved hygiene. That's always a good thing coming from
something you really think about when you get cancer,
Certainly agree.
Well, I'm a bit of a suck, so I'm a touchy-feely type person. So not being able or being allowed to go in to see all the nurses and doctors and being able to, so they can look at me and go, wow, you look fantastic, because I like that. I miss that with the whole COVID thing, right? But I've been so outside of on my journey before COVID hit that medically it didn't really impact me, other than the fact that I just missed my hugs.
Look pretty good to me, Daryl.
Yeah.
Stop. Now I'm embarrassed.
And Sarah, you were probably experiencing your hip replacements either right before or sort of the beginning of COVID. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I had my first done in January, and then wasn't during the pandemic, but my second was last summer. So definitely during the pandemic, it was really weird to not have people go with you and have visitors after. It's a little bit nerve-wracking getting that kind of procedure done. I had never had anything very serious, like kind of any surgeries before. But luckily I had my first one, so I knew a little bit of what to expect. But also I just found it was kind of anticlimactic at the end of treatment, because I finished treatment in August and I thought I was going to get to kind of celebrate and sort of get back to normal life. And certainly not back to normal life yet. I thought, this is kind of coming from, I guess, a privileged place, but my mom had said she was going to take me on a trip once I was done all my treatment and things like that. So all these things have been put on hold. I know everyone is missing out on a lot of things and putting things on hold as well. So, but yeah, just kind of a little bit sort of not what I was expecting to happen at the end of the 2 years. It's kind of extended. I felt it's kind of extended treatment in a way, because it's kind of how I was living during cancer treatment. I was just at home all the time. I wasn't really going out anywhere. I had to be careful not to go around people. It's kind of just an extension in a way.
For sure.
It's really interesting that you say that. We heard that quite a bit, you know, and Dylan brought it up. When you go through treatment, you have to be so cautious and, you know, good hygiene, washing your hands. And now everybody sort of had a little taste of what that's like. So it's really interesting that you said that it kind of felt like it prolonged your treatment, being, you know, kind of all locked down together.
But I will add, I did get my first vaccine a couple days ago, so I'm really excited.
That's fantastic. And this leads really nicely into another question I had around COVID-19. And what's one thing that you're most excited about once, you know, our Atlantic bubble hopefully opens up a little bit more in the coming weeks and months?
Daryl's going to be hugging.
So Daryl, lots of hugs. Jerry, what's one thing that you're looking forward to doing?
Well, I'm very fortunate that I live in PEI, although we were kind of isolating for about 2 years before COVID struck. And then I was just kind of starting to go out for coffee with girlfriends. COVID struck. And I said to my husband, Joe, I said, oh, well, I said, we're used to what COVID's all about, because we kind of didn't get out. But on PEI, we've been very fortunate. We don't have a lot of cases. Most of them are travel related. So I was able to get all my vaccinations. Now I have my COVID shot. So I feel a little bit more able to go out among some people, mainly people I know, though, you know, whereas before I wasn't going very far. Joe did all the shopping. I didn't go see a grocery store for about 3 years. And so anyway, yeah, it's certainly different. I can't imagine having to go through this diagnosis during COVID, because at least when I had my family, whereas you probably just get dropped off in the hospital now and not be able to have anyone. So
yes, you do.
I just can't imagine having to go through that. And you, Jason, with your kids. I mean, my kids were able to fly home, but I can't imagine it. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, you know, a different situation for people who are going through treatment or wrapping up treatment right now. Jason, did you want to talk about maybe something that you're excited about? You know, you're finishing up treatment and you're sort of 1 year post-transplant, and hopefully with COVID, you know, hopefully getting better. What's one thing that you're really excited about?
Well, as I said before, my parents live in Nova Scotia. So they were hoping to get over when the bubble was supposed to open up earlier. So I'm hoping when the bubble opens up, they'll make new plans to come to the island to visit us up here. So
definitely seeing family, that would be a really nice thing. Dylan, Daryl, or Sarah, did you want to maybe add anything to what you're excited about?
I got a big list. I don't want to go down that. I'm just looking forward to seeing people again, I guess. Like, without going through counting how many people got to be around you and stuff like that. So I'm just looking forward. I just being normal again. Get vaccinated. Let's do it. Get it done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sarah or Daryl?
Well, I think for me, again, hugs. I can't stress enough hugs. Can't wait for them, and can't wait to get them. Can't wait to receive them. And well, my vaccine, I'm scheduled for the 29th of June, so I got another little ways to go yet. I got a little sookie there because I thought I was qualified because of the health bracket, but yeah, it turns out I didn't qualify for that. So, but anyway, I'm on the list. So, and it getting back to normal, whatever normal is going to be, I can't wait.
That's fantastic, and you're close. You're getting there. Only a couple more weeks.
Yeah, I'll echo what Dylan and Daryl said about getting back to normal. I'd like to do a little bit of traveling because that's kind of what I had my heart set on for this year. I said, oh, I'll still be off work the year post treatment. I'll just take that time to travel and just have fun. And here we are. Yeah, so hopefully that. And I have my partner and I'd like to go meet his family. His family works in Ontario and Colorado and all over the place. So yeah, just getting back to normal, even just, going out to eat with friends or hanging out with friends will be great.
Absolutely, for sure. So my next question is back to Sarah and Dylan. So you were both young when you started treatment, when you were diagnosed and started treatment. So can you tell us a little bit about how your experience with cancer has changed your outlook on life, whether that's, career or, that kind of thing?
I went first last time. You go first. I asked you to go first last time, and then I just kept talking. So.
Okay, sure. I feel like it's changed it in many ways. Probably being in my 20s, it's such a time of change anyway. But if I don't know if I can really say that I'm glad that I got diagnosed, but I found some really positive things came out of it. It's gotten me to reevaluate my life and what's truly important to me, where, maybe I wasn't really, I guess, following my heart before or being true to myself. Because there's kind of a lot of pressure to follow a certain script and a schedule in life about, well, you do this, you go to school, and then you do this, and you get by a house, and there's this whole sort of thing you're supposed to follow, and cancer really interrupts that. And in my case, I kind of feel like that was positive because I wasn't really doing the things that that really would make me happy. I guess I was just doing what I thought would make what was expected of me or what would make other people happy. So yeah, I guess I'm just now trying to be true to myself and living a life that makes me happy.
Yeah, I'll Sarah said that a lot better than I could have, but no, seriously though, that's something that I think I definitely took from life too. It kind of gave me direction. I say it that way. I'm never glad. Like, you're never glad you have cancer, but you take it in stride. So I take it and run with it. So take the positives out of it. That's pretty much where I go with that. I think, if I can get cancer, I can win the lotto or become a millionaire, right?
Thanks, guys, for sharing that. We're getting a lot of questions pop up on the Q&A box, so I wanted to take a look at those. So one of them just came in. So she said that her daughter was diagnosed with AML at 15 and just finished treatment before her 16th birthday. She said her daughter dug right in and just got through it. She doesn't really talk about it during or since finishing her treatment. So she was wondering if anybody wanted to answer this, if she might, or if any of you hit sort of an emotional wall after treatment was done, and if that's something that, she should be watching out for her daughter. And if so, how did you cope with sort of hitting that post-treatment emotional wall?
I guess, well, I can kind of speak. So sorry, was this her mother that's speaking? Is that what that asked the question?
No, so her daughter. So her young daughter was diagnosed with AML and just
right. Okay. All right. Well, if she's looking for her perspective, I'd say, for a year, that's all she had to talk about and live about. And maybe she just doesn't want to talk about it yet. Like, it took me a while to really to open up and learn things. Like, being 19, I was out on my own. I learned these certain things, and it's like what Sarah said, you learn life in a certain way and things are supposed to go this way, X, Y, and Z. And if you talk about that and you worry about that so much, maybe she's just not ready to talk about it too. And maybe it's not so much a wall, but maybe she just needs a little more time, because it has been pretty soon since she stopped treatment. So, life's pretty abnormal right now. Being 16, I mean, that's an important time in your life too. So I think maybe she might need a little more time, and again, I don't know. I don't know your daughter, and I don't know you, but from my perspective, I think that's something that I would think about is just thinking about that all the time for a whole year, and then maybe you just don't want to talk about it anymore. You just want to move on from it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for any of you on the panel, what was your experience sharing your cancer journey? Did you find it came natural to do what you're doing now and sort of sharing your experiences to strangers, or was it something that you kind of had to work towards?
Well, for me, I'm much older than all the rest of the panels. I just thought, well, it is what it is, and you just make the most of it, and you live every day to the fullest. And for the ones that are younger, I'm sure they would definitely have maybe a little different perspective, but I'm sure they're the same as I feel. You just live every day to the fullest, and you make the most of everything.
I'll add to that, Jerry. Like, one thing that I always think about is when talking to so many people, I guess that's another advantage I had out of COVID was whenever I go get treatment, there's always people around me getting treatment. You know, everyone's having a bad day today, no matter what, so you can kind of sit around and have a conversation. And when you talk to people next to you and you learn about these situations, you kind of like learn from different perspectives, and you kind of get a better idea of what other people do. So you're always pulling from other people. So I think it's very important to keep a peer-to-peer conversation, because it might feel weird, but you can figure it out when you talk to somebody else and realize everyone's thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'd like to add, especially one of the biggest things that I found the hardest to deal with was a lot of the side effects from the chemo, a lot of the side effects from the radiation that you didn't know was coming. They told you a lot of things about being sick and so on and so forth, but I struggled the most with the brain fog, fatigue, the being able to focus on the simple little tasks. Just for an example, I do some upholstery work. So I was getting ready to do this little ottoman, and I had 7 or 8 different pieces that I had to sew together. So I said, now I better write numbers on these, because I'm going to get these mixed up, guaranteed. And so I just started 1, 2, 3, 4, and I couldn't remember 5. Had no idea how to write 5. I wrote backwards 3, then I got angry, then I got scared. And this was 2 years after my transplant. And I'm thinking, you know, what did they do to me? Am I starting to lose my mind? And I only by fluke found this other seminar that was online about brain fog and fatigue. And it answered all the questions. You know, I seriously thought that my mind was gone now. I'm done, just because I couldn't remember. And a few minutes after that, I was perfect, clear as a bell, and just went, what happened? You know, but you didn't, you know, I didn't know these things. You know, the drop of a hat and you're tired. You're just finished for the day for no rhyme or reason, just finished. And I, again, had no clue, right? So when you see someone that don't want to chat or is sort of starting to go into themselves, it could very well be just as simple as it's that brain fog. I used to stand in the hallway looking at the TV or looking at a picture on the wall and having no clue what I was doing or where I was, just out there, right? And if you know, it's a lot easier to deal with when you know those things, and try to, or at least be prepared for, oh, okay, yeah, maybe that's what this brain fog stuff is, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
Definitely.
Yep.
That actually ties in nicely to another question that we received. So where did it go? There we go. Someone asked, you know, after getting through treatment, how did you find navigating life and returning to work or returning to school? How did you find, you know, that transitioning back to normal life was like for you?
Well, it is very much a new normal afterwards. And I was working at a tire shop I was the shop foreman. I ended up having to leave that job completely. I couldn't go back to it. It would just be too hard on me physically to go back to it. So, and that isn't easy. You're basically, it basically took away my career. I ended up going back to a fish processing plant that I had worked before that. So.
So you kind of had to adjust your career a little bit to, sort of make it work for what you were going through.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to sort of add to that like kind of adjustment back to, I think what Jason said, that new normal?
Well,
I think it may. Oh, sorry. Oh, you go ahead, Jared.
Sorry, Dylan. For me, I used to be a marketing business development. So sales, marketing, trade shows, conferences was my world. And for a huge corporate company. And believe it or not, between that and now, 2019 left that company. The whole, hi, my name is, and really giving a hoot of what they had to say to you just wasn't there anymore. I didn't have that drive to do what I didn't have the will to just sit and mope and just say, well, this is it. So now, believe it or not, in 2019, just for us in Newfoundland, we had a snowmageddon, which was 10,000 feet of snow in one winter, actually in 3 days. But I went from that to I opened a shoe repair store by myself in this little shop with my little sewing machines and polish machines, and I'm in my own little world, happy as pig in, well, you know what I mean. But it was a complete flip-flop from the whole corporate entity to just being me, and yeah, it was difficult because when I went back to work, everybody was, it's great to see you, and you're trying to show everybody that you're the same person, but realistically, you're not. It's a huge change. And I went from being the superhero to people sort of, I don't know how to say, it's not disrespecting, but really challenging you to think, are you actually even milking cancer? Are you trying to get away with things that you're just because you had cancer and you're try to deal with those things? So I decided to walk away from the corporate world, and it's been, for me, great ever since, because I did suffer mentally when I went through the whole process, and my doctors felt that I should be on medications to help with the PTSD. And because I was like I said, at the beginning, top of my game. And all of a sudden, bang, you're looking at the doctor that's saying you have a 40% chance of dying right now. What do you do with that? Right? So the whole struggle of all of that, and you get back. But now, in the past 8 months, I'm not on any medication, none whatsoever, for medical or mental. It's great for me.
It's empowering for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sorry about rambling.
Well, no, I think one common theme here, I think everyone can agree, you kind of shed your old life. You kind of like put everything in the past, you bury some things, you forget about things, you forgive yourself about things. I think that's things that cancer make you think about. That goes for any type of cancer, really. It doesn't to be leukemia. Like for me, I kind of had an opposite effect. Kind of made me more ambitious. A lot of things I felt like I needed to catch up. I had that kind of feeling in my life. So when I was coming back, I was like, all my friends are graduating university, starting careers, doing things like that. And I felt like, I'm behind. So I did this like extreme catch up. I became a paramedic. I started a business. And so a lot of stuff started kind of pouring out at once. And then all of a sudden it just all came together. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I'm really not that far behind. So I you kind of have to take a step back sometimes. But for me, it was very, like I said, cancer gave me a different direction. When I said earlier, it really did. Like it made me think I can do anything. So I really like to, I try to spread that message as much as I can, is even though it's something terrible that happens to you and your family and the people around you, you can always take it and use it somehow. You really can.
Yeah, I love that, seeing it as, you know, an opportunity as opposed to a limitation.
It
That's
can
I'll
be.
comment on something if I can.
Yeah, of course.
I haven't gone back to work yet, so I can't really speak to that. I'm sure it will be a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of an adjustment. But when I got diagnosed, I was actually halfway through my master's degree. And so I tried to continue my studies after my initial phase of treatment of that first month where you're inpatient in the hospital. And it worked out really well because it was mostly an online program. This was before COVID, but it just happened to be online. And so I could do it from the comfort of my own home. And I found it was a really great distraction and a way to keep my mind sort of active and moving. And it was interesting, and I was interacting with people. So I think that was really great. And just, I also wanted to comment, if it's okay, on the last question, just about the kind of the woman's daughter who's 15, I think. For me, I wasn't able to process very much during treatment. You're just kind of in survival mode the whole time. You know, you're just focusing on each day as it comes. And it wasn't until after treatment that now actually for me is like the most challenging and difficult emotionally, because now it's just you're sort of figuring everything out and processing what you went through and what you were dealing with. And that's, so that could also be a part of it, is just now she's starting to process things. And I was actually kind of paired up in Halifax. They have some, I guess, therapists who specialize with cancer patients or in kind of that realm. So I got paired up with this therapist, and I found that that's so incredibly helpful. And just to talk to someone, and also being part of kind of, and since she's younger, she'll probably be on social media. So there's lots of great groups on and pages to follow on Instagram and all that kind of thing that just make you feel like you're not so alone, even if you don't feel like that comfortable talking to your mom about one specific thing. Maybe she'll feel good about talking to someone else about it, whether it's a peer or, you know, a professional.
Absolutely. And that actually ties in well to a question that we just got. So this could be for anybody in the group. Have you found anything, so like music, therapy, or support groups helpful while dealing, you know, with this sort of next stage of your cancer experience?
Mine was video games. I have it actually kept me pretty distracted pretty much the whole time through everything. I still carry it over today. It's a great release for me, and it's therapeutic to me. Keeps my mind off things. You know, it's kind of a, you know, some people put on music, they listen to the things that they listen to, and they zone out. You think about other things. You watch a movie, you know, all these things kind of put you in an other world kind of place. And for me, it was video games. So that's definitely where I went.
Yeah, so like a good form of escape, you know.
Yeah. I think everyone needs that one way or another, whatever it be for you. You know, I met a girl, and every time she got treatment, every second week that I did, and she knitted and did all kinds of things like that. So she gave me a hat, stuff like that. So it was kind of like, you know, seeing my hat be made every week, every 2 weeks, it's kind of cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else wanted to talk about, you know, if you had anything beneficial, whether attended a support group or did music therapy, anything stand out that was really beneficial?
Well, I guess what I did is because I wasn't able to go to gyms or really be around people, I just arranged for someone to come into my own house. So I started piano lessons. And the other part of that too is our daughter lived in Vancouver, and they decided to move back home with 2 grandchildren. And they're right next door.
Oh,
so
that's amazing.
It's great.
That's good. So like baby therapy, getting to see your grandkids. That's so important.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share anything?
Yeah, I'll jump in. There's some great groups out there on on social media, on Facebook. For myself, Young Adult Cancer Canada is a great one. They have lots of great programs. They have chats. They have tons of things. People are just asking questions, and for like kind of our age cohort, I guess it's quite nice to have. And also there's some kind of funny, humorous pages. There's one called The Cancer Patient, and it's kind of a dark sense of humor, but I think a lot of people who have cancer kind of have to develop that if you don't have it already. So it's pretty entertaining as a cancer patient. It's very relatable. And so those kinds of things I found were really great. Recently, I found this organization called Inspire Health. They're in BC. And right now, because of the pandemic, all their stuff is online. It's available to anyone. And I did a great 4-week art therapy for cancer patients on there, like session. And it was really cool. A lot about mindfulness and just being creative. Even if you don't think of yourself as an artist, it was just awesome to have the chance to just express yourself and kind of get those feelings out there. And yeah, those are just a few.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Sarah. And I would encourage anybody who's attending, if you are looking for any supports, whether it's peer support, art therapy, whatever you feel like that you need, definitely reach out to us. And if we don't have the program within LLSC, we can definitely point you in the right direction. So we can help find the resources that you need. I'll also say thank you to everybody that's been posting questions. We've gotten quite a few. I don't think that we'll get around to everyone's, but we definitely have time for a few more. So this one came in and she wrote, as a hematology nurse, I often wonder what it is that you need most from us in terms of support. What can we do to help you on your journey? So I guess any insights about how, your healthcare team could support you or what you were looking for? So I think, Dylan, you turned off your mute if you want to jump in.
Oh yeah, I got one for you. Well, I work in healthcare too, so I'm a paramedic. So every day I usually have someone that's going up to Halifax or someone who has cancer. You see it everywhere. Cancer is right next door and you won't even know it. But I think one thing that always irked me was, now I've never had this experience. I only had it now in 2 years that I was going through treatment. I only had 2 bad experiences. And the only time I had a bad experience was when a nurse or a doctor comes in and they're acting like they're having a bad day in front of you. And, their bad day is because they have to come and treat you or they're being, I guess it's not so much you need something from somebody, you just need someone to be constant. So a smile when you show up, and being kind, everyone's different. So I was pretty smiley the whole way through. And I even had a doctor say to me, are you just like that because that's your coping mechanism? And, I thought about it for a long time, but I was pretty positive the whole way through. And that's just me, and other people are different. So I think every day you kind of have to, if you really want to help somebody, you kind of have to get to know them a bit first. And that's, everyone's there for a long period of time. So I think everyone's a little different, but smiling face and not bringing your home life in with us too, is because we have enough to deal with, is kind of more than enough, because we're already there getting hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of drugs in our arms. So we already have enough to think about, right? So
definitely. So attitudes, I think, plays a key role.
Pretty much.
A positive attitude.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jason, did you want to add something?
Well, just more or less echoing what Dylan said. And the biggest thing is the attitude of the nurses. I developed quite a relationship with some of the nurses that came in. You get a constant rotation of nurses, but there was at least a few that I was getting on a regular basis that I really developed a relationship with. And that's one thing I'm looking forward. That's another thing I'm looking forward to, is once the VG comes out of its lockdown, being able to go and see mainly the nurses.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they had a big impact on your cancer experience.
Oh yes, big time, especially during transplant, because they were the only ones I seen.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually had a doctor basically give me a paramedic book, so he's probably a big reason why I became one after treatment. So
wow, so big inspiration on your career choice.
Well, he wanted me to be a doctor first, but I said it's a little ambitious.
Go ahead, Jerry.
my experience with the nurses in Halifax was just unbelievable. They just became your family. And I did not have one bad experience over there. It was, and the doctor, Nabushka, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but when you'd went to day unit, you know, to see where your bloods were, if you had to have blood or platelets or whatever, he would always know me enough that he'd say, well, you're probably going to end up in the hospital tonight. He'd keep you in day unit and you'd be transferred right over to the unit. And those girls would always make sure you were well looked after. I know one time I ended up at the unit, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and they were expecting me, and it's just amazing. They just become family, and I can't wait for the bubble to open because they're all coming for a big fetal lobster to PEI.
Definitely something to look forward to.
You got to invite me too.
For sure. No problem. Because PEI has the best lobster.
Oh, I know. Well, I'm actually there for your potatoes.
We're not going to go there. Not going to go there.
No, the real islands are talking over here, Daryl.
Well, that's a debate for another panel.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting carried away.
Well, I would like to add, when it comes to the nurses and the care, it was amazing for me. I mean, Halifax was second to none, but then second to home, because at home, when your immune system is zero, you're prone to all. And I had just about every infection known to man. You know, you needed that private room, so there was times when you were in a different section of hospital waiting for the private room in your ward. And my wife actually coined the phrase, I wish they hook you up with your people, because you're in the heart ward. God love the people or the nurses and doctors in the heart area, but it's a different level of care and concern that the nurses, something as simple as making sure your jug of water is there. You don't get that as a heart patient. You don't get that as just coming out of back surgery or whatever. But when you are in the cancer ward, you had the warm blankets and that bottle of water. You had that yogurt if you needed it because you didn't have enough. But the care was completely different, you know. That, and I can't explain why the nurses and the doctors were like that, but it was evident every time you go to a different place and you get back to home, you were with your people because they actually took care of you on a different level, right? Spoiled you.
Agree.
Totally agree with that, Daryl. That was my experience with hip surgery. I was so shocked by, and of course it wasn't poor treatment, but it felt that way compared to the treatment on the hematology floor when I got my hip surgeries. I was like, they're not very nice over here, even though I'm sure they were fine, but you know, you're used to such a high standard of care. It's like everybody has said, their family, they're amazing. They're so warm and they just talk to you in such a caring manner, and just, it's obvious how much they care about their work and about their patients. It's really nice.
Or is it we're all just more needy than everybody else?
It made us that way.
Yeah.
It made us that way.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice to hear, and I know we're so appreciative of the staff at all our cancer centers in Atlantic. They do a phenomenal job, and I think we're really lucky to be Atlantic Canadians. So to wrap us up, I have two last questions for everyone, so you can answer one or both. So the last question is, what is the biggest takeaway from your cancer experience? And then also, what is something, you know, a piece of advice, a tip, a trick that you would give to someone who may be starting their cancer treatment? So, Jason, you're unmuted, so I'm gonna call you up first.
Okay, well, the biggest tip is to stay positive, whatever way you can do that, whether it's finding a distraction that takes your mind off what you're going through, even if it's just for a few minutes, or talking to your peers. And especially pre-COVID, it was really useful walking around 8A and getting to talk to some of the ones that were further along and really being able to connect with them and learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Did anybody else want to jump in? Either, the biggest thing that you took away from your cancer experience and any advice you'd give to someone starting theirs?
A big one I think everyone should realize too is at some point, when you get diagnosed and everything changes, you really have to take the little things. So if you're getting really sick one day and you're able to drink a little bit of water, that is still a good thing. Like, don't think that I'm not drinking enough. It's like, I got to drink that much today. It's a different type of mindset. And I think it's really important to keep that. It's all about the little wins. And eventually you won't even be thinking about them. And you got to find your own ways to cope. It's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. And slow down for the good times, and when it's bad, just try to take it in stride. You don't need to dwell. It's not going to get any better unless you try, right? So if you start up here, anything can happen.
That's great.
And I think for me, it is what it is. You deal with it, and they give you your treatment plan, and you go with it. And you just, as I said, when I got there, they basically told me my second time around that you have a 10% chance, maybe just go home and have a good year. And I said, well, I've got 10%. So we went with that, ended up with an amazing donor. And here I am to almost, a year and a half later, and able to pretty well do. I have some issues with the brain fog, no question about that. Joints, stuff like that, but that's minute compared to what we've all gone through. So live every day to the fullest and enjoy it. And make it your life, not living for someone else.
That's great insight. Thanks so much, Jerry. Sarah or Daryl, did you want to jump in?
Well, I think one of the big things for people that are going through it that I learned is you start off your day as a cancer patient, your glass is half full. And you have to learn how to live your life with half a glass, because you start off like somebody who doesn't have cancer. They have a full glass and they're ready to go and take on their day. Then they work out, they do things, and then their glass is down to half. So they take supplements, they rest, they eat, and their glass is back up to full. What a cancer patient has to learn is their glass is going to half. No matter what you put in there, it's only going to go to half. So you start to learn how to deal with, and it gets better. That your glass actually goes to 3/4. Mine's, I would say, about 95% now. But you have to learn that your glass is half full and how to deal with or take on your day with that half glass. Because taking that nap is not going to fill that glass. You're still going to be that tired, and just accept it, because it does get better, at the end of the day. Now, the other thing for me was I had unofficially a couple opportunities where past nurses, I've been in for checkups and bump into a nurse that was on the ward that said, I'm dealing with a patient right now that went through this. And you remember when you went through this? And I'm absolutely. And they look at me, could you sort of almost bump into them? Their room number is blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. And I've had 3 or 4 different opportunities where I've actually went up to the ward and bumped into these people and said, hey, mind if we have a chat? Or, oh, I see you're going through the same thing. And told them my experience. And the joy and release that I got from that, knowing that I was actually able to help, because I think technically you're really not allowed to do that. I don't think I think there's rules against it, but anyway, I did it anyway. But knowing that you actually helped somebody going through this, that was probably the best medication I ever had afterwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure for them, it was so beneficial hearing, you know, from someone else, again, just breaking down that isolation and making sure that, you know, you're able to connect with someone who understands what you're going through.
And there's nothing wrong with that half glass.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Have a glass of what though, Daryl? Is it water?
You do know I'm in Newfoundland, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking.
I'll leave that there.
Yeah, all right.
Sarah, any final thoughts?
Sure, yeah. My biggest takeaway was probably do what makes you happy, which is a little cliche, and we've all heard that a ton before, but I never really knew what it meant until I was in the situation. I'd heard a lot and it didn't really mean anything to me until kind of now, or since I've gone through this experience. And my advice for someone who's maybe newly diagnosed or going through treatment is don't be afraid to ask for help or support. Just because I know, I think we all, or if you're lucky, you tend to get most of your support during treatment, and then after treatment ends, it's kind of like everybody goes back to normal life, and they think you're back to normal life and everything's good. And that's kind of when a lot of the hard works begins, just processing a lot of things. So I would say be mindful of that and don't be too hard on yourself, that, you know, you're not just back to your old self, you know, the day after treatment ends, and it's a journey and it's a process. And yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to anyone, whether you have a good support system already, or if you need more support and you look online or with a therapist or whoever. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you all so much for joining us today. So Sarah and Dylan, Jerry, Jason, and Daryl, thank you all for joining. I also wanted to remind anybody or everybody on the session that if you ever have questions or are looking for any resources or support, definitely get in touch with the LLSC. You can send us an email, info@bloodcancers.ca, or give us a call at 1-833-222-4884. We will be sending out a survey after this session ends, and really appreciate your feedback. So if you can take some time to fill that out, that would be great. And it really helps us, plan these events in the future. So any feedback or input is greatly appreciated. And then lastly, I just want to thank Astellas again for generously supporting the session. So thank you all, and I hope you all have a safe and wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you. Bye-bye.